Heal, and welcome back to the beauty that is Abzû. And first things first in this chapter, this is one of the things that when I first played this game, this is what really took it from the initial whoa to a wow, this is amazing. There's just this certain feeling of, it's part of why as much as I naturally fear water, it's just a kind of discomfort thing I have. I can respect the wonder of these underwater locations, and that's because it kind of takes away a lot of the things that would usually affect us on a day-to-day basis. So it's, at this moment in time, this diver is not thinking about anything from his life other than the present moment. He's one of the fish now. Like, he's just among all these different kind of fish, and I think the fact that there are so many different kind of fish around, you got all they're in their own little schools, but they're also part of this stream. They're as one being. Well, I guess not really one being, but like it's a huge community that don't actually have any way to communicate to each other because they're not that particular kind of species. They don't communicate with one another like people do, but there's just this unspoken bond between all of them, and that is something natural. That is actually quite an unusual thing to address, because you think of like the concepts of the food chain and think of how different species live off other species. That's something that in nature a lot of the time doesn't go like this. A lot of the time there's more conflict between different species, but when you get this strong blowing along stream of water and just everything is on equal footing, like what we know ourselves as the intelligent person, the intelligent human, basically bonding alongside all these different fish. You know, fish on an intelligence level, quite simple species. You know, you just see them, they swim along, they don't have much memory, but like all together as one, that is like, this is what I meant in the first part, that I'm losing myself with words. It's just, there's so much going on that I just love. And here's a particular game mechanic that I actually think really complements this gameplay well, because this is the meditation. Basically what this is that in each of the chapters, I think there's one in each, but don't quote me on that, I only check out a couple in this playthrough, but you can just stop still for a moment. You can just sit back and soak in all the environment around you. You can check, you can see at the bottom it's showing you all the different kind of fish that inhabit this particular area. I really appreciate this as someone who isn't much of a nature aficionado or anything. I say this as someone who just appreciates the beauty of what is around us. I say this as someone who just watches the character swimming around, plays and controls the character swimming around, and still gets properly swallowed into this atmosphere. This is probably something that someone who maybe has a bit of a background in aquatics, someone who is fascinated by different species of fish, someone who loves the underwater naturally, will probably absolutely adore this game, like even more than I do. And this is just, there's so much here that just absolutely I'm kind of just, it takes a lot to get this much power from me, but I like little sections like what we saw just now, because if you've seen so far, we're basically going back through the same gameplay formula of like the first chapter, where we went around, we found the little torch, and the torch opened a door for us, and then we went on through onto the next section. And that is something that I think that's done in that way to sort of encourage you to have a bit of a swim around, because like you can just start through this game pretty quick if you want, but there is so much that you can see here that if you're playing it for yourself, then different people get different satisfaction from it. Like, to me, what sold me on it, as you've heard me gushing about, is the presentation. I think other people would get a lot from it, from maybe checking out all the different kinds of fish. Like, they want to look at all the different areas that have been built, like use this as a platform to, you know, get a feel for the underwater. I think as we get more and more background and we discover new locations, there's another element that sort of comes into this where you can piece together more mystery behind this world, more of the things that have happened in this world that we're exploring. I'm gonna save more discussion of that for later chapters, because there are some things that you can really think about. And look at this! Look at that, that is just so cool. But this, from a sort of tone perspective, that we had the bright, lively stream bit, and then we just jumped over and suddenly it's dark. And the fact that the dolphins we jumped over that section there with are now gone completely, that's a harsh tonal dissonance that really sort of grabs my attention. It's, if you've just been sort of going along with the flow, you know, this is like your wake-up call that there's more here than just being automated along a stream. This is what makes you think there's actually more here. And this game is good with that. There's a lot of space that you can explore, swim around, and just soak in, but there's also parts where you just get taken aback. That's not a bad thing. This isn't like the sort of it clashes and it just takes you out of the experience. This just drags you right back in. If you start coasting for a couple of minutes, the game will have something that you'll just reconnect with almost immediately. And it's such a powerful thing that they managed to do with this. I think I've got most of my sort of aimless gushing out my system now, so to give a little bit of background to this game came out last year in 2016, and it was developed by Giant Squid, who are actually, to my knowledge, a completely new studio. I think this is their first game, at least from when I did a little bit of research on it a few days ago. I seem to recall that this was their first game. And if you're recognising the general style, the gameplay style, that might have something to do with the studio having been founded by Matt Nava. I think I'm pronouncing his last name right there. And the reason why his name might be familiar is that he was the art director in Flower, which was a PlayStation game that was a sort of soak it in kind of game. And also a more famous example that I think a lot of people know about now is the game Journey, which I haven't actually beaten that game. I do intend to, because after this game has given me such an amazing feeling, I want to get that again from Journey. But Journey, instead of being underwater, Journey takes place in a desert and you're sort of exploring that, and it's a similar kind of deal, because I have seen playthroughs of that game and it's just, there's something magical about this kind of experience. Look at this on screen right now, just swimming through that school of fish that are just circling. You know, that's just so cool. But the music as well. The music was composed by Austin Wintory, who also composed pieces for Journey. So there's a lot of the same team on board, even if it is technically under a different studio now. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you next time for Chapter 3 of Abzû, where you'll get more endless gushing. I'll see you then.